Jan is the author of Treating Trauma and Addiction with the Felt Sense Polyvagal Model. I think for a lot of us, we've heard of polyvagal theory, and it's just so hard to know, what do you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, it's something we've known a lot about, like the nervous system sort of drives behaviors. Polyvagal theory gave us a language. And I think what you're doing, along with people like Mona Delahook
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
Deb Dana and others, are operationalizing polyvagal theory and bringing new language and new tools. So while I think polyvagal theory gave us the language, I think you're giving us the tools,
Mm-hmm.
and as well as showing us the connection further between trauma and addiction.
Right.
Jacqueline jumped in here. I think Jacqueline's been with us from the beginning here. Hi, Jan. Any tips on specific somatic or body-based interventions to utilize for these clients? I think they're wanting the somatic. Thank you, Jacqueline. Give us an example of the way you've used this. We saw your assessment sheet. Give us an example of a client that you've used that has done a specific thing that's helped them re-regulate their nervous system, and they've stopped needing the addictive substance or behavior.
So this happens over a period of time. For example, there's a way in which a lot of people will present and get really stuck in this kind of sympathetic, chaotic space of what Gendlin used to call having your head in the soup.
Your head in the what?
In the soup. Just like really absorbed in adrenaline pumping and anxiety. And they would use addictive behaviors to try to calm down inside. And so one of those ways would be, for example, just drinking too much alcohol. It's a very common one, right? So slowly over time, we work in both understanding what those behaviors are, teaching these people how to orient to the model. What is it that you're doing? And how is that actually helping you, and how is it hurting you? And what are some other ways that you can learn how to calm yourself down? So one of those key ways is teaching people how to focus. Mm-hmm. Slowly beginning to notice, how do you bring a client into the body? How do you do that, right? People ask me that all the time. How do you do that? Mm-hmm. Like you just sort of go, oh, I got this thing called focusing. No.
Yeah, but people are traumatized and have severe addictions. That's the one thing that feels really dangerous and scary to do.
Yeah.
And is to go into the body and see what the body's uncomfortable with.
True. And also to be with other people, right? Really scary. Yeah. So this is the kind of thing that happens slowly over time. And a lot of it has to do with making a relationship with the person. Mm-hmm. And as they start to feel some measure of safety, you can begin by saying something like, I noticed when we talk about that, there's a kind of way your throat tightens up. You know, or you just go like this, or you cover your eyes. You notice what's going on in the body.
So you just start with noticing some kind of physiological cue.
Yeah, sometimes. Never do it when you don't feel like you've got a connection, because then you're going to shame the person. But if you feel like you've got a relationship, it's like, wow, that when you just said that, I really could hear how did your throat tighten up there? Mm-hmm. And if they'll go, yeah, and then you can kind of stay there a little bit and go, that was a really hard thing to say. And slow everything down and pause. We use a lot of pause in focusing.
That's also scary for traumatized.
It is, but that's why you don't do it in the first session.
Right.
You know, this is the journey, right? Slowly over time. And then it feels so wonderful as the therapist when the client can start to look at you and go, yeah, it is tight there. And then sometimes you step back. You might ask, is it okay to stay here a little bit? Or maybe we just want to step back. So a lot of titrating, like lots of other therapies do too, in somatic experiencing. And, you know, Peter Levine was also a friend and student of Jean Gendlin's. So there's a lot of what, Gendlin really brought somatics so much into the whole field. And I don't think he's gotten enough real recognition for that.
Yeah. Again, I think earlier I said I hadn't seen a book on focusing, which, if those of you who may not know, Gene Gendlin, he developed a model called focusing, which Jan has so elegantly incorporated into this polyvagal theory model. She's, Gene Gendlin didn't have the language of polyvagal theory or the nervous system so much when he developed focusing. Jan's really brought that language into the focusing model, which is this beautiful way of approaching things in the body that you're either avoiding or are uncomfortable with, that unless we learn how to safely approach, keep us locked in addictive behaviors, behaviors that hurt us. And so what you're saying is, and you correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is, if we can help clients approach the things they've been avoiding internally that their body knows,
yes,
if we can help them learn to do that safely, they will develop a new way of feeling calm and safe in their body that doesn't involve the use of a substance.
Yes, because absolutely, because you will be teaching them ventral practices.
And what do you mean by ventral practices?
Grounded places in the body. When the body feels calm, the ventral part of the vagus nerve is activated. Right? So right now I feel pretty calm, some excitement because this is fun. Yeah. It's wonderful, but, very grounded too. And so when we be in this place in our bodies, we teach people, again, the way that Steve Porges, in polyvagal theory, you're flipping something on its head. It's not maladaptive, it's adaptive. What Gendlin would say is all those uncomfortable places, we welcome them. They're gold. Because they give us information about how we're living our lives. Yeah. And so even, something as simple but powerful as like making eye contact with your client, that's really can be scary in the beginning, but over time, if you know how to be respectful, to honor this person in front of us, right? It's a gift that people share this vulnerability. They'll open to you. And if you ask, they will tell you. So I'll say something to normalize it. I'll say, bodies are smart in terms of coping with what you're describing. Because often people will tell you something about what brought them there, right? Oh, my dad used to hit me. So it starts to open over time. This work takes years. So, it's like, bodies are pretty good at helping. How did you cope with all that? Usually people have really pretty good ways. Like they get into like addictive behaviors or drinking, or you normalize it, eating a lot of food, masturbating. These things are they're available. It's what's available to you as a little kid. It's accessible. If you name it, if you say it, they'll tell you usually. If you don't, they probably won't. And so one of my kind of things in all of this, my calls to action, is to really encourage trauma therapists to ask and to learn ways to deal with addiction that, are helpful, ways that feel hopeful to people, where we just keep reinforcing these focusing practices, finding the felt sense over time. And we have a very, a beautiful community in the International Focusing Institute. And the other thing too, Zach, is that Gendlin, he actually saw these changes in the nervous system in the body. He did 3 studies of the autonomic nervous system, looking at heart rate variability, which is Steve's work, and galvanic skin response. So when I found those, I was like, wow, that is so cool. He saw what he called this physical release in the body with the felt shift. And that's what got me really curious about, oh, I think that's the ANS.